Looking for a protein shake that tastes as good as it performs? Meet Rockin' Protein Max. Packed with 50 grams of fuel, it'll help you keep up when your day won't slow down. And because it's always creamy and never chalky, every sip tastes great. Even better, it's lactose-free and has 0 added sugar. It's not every day you find a protein shake you actually want to finish. Catch Rockin' Protein in the dairy cooler at a store near you. Rockin' Protein and Shamrock Farms are registered trademarks of Shamrock Foods Company.
For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, Capitol Bureau Chief and host of Under the Dome. You're listening to our latest episode for the week of March 3rd, 2025. March is finally here. I'm joined today by my politics team colleagues, Kyle Ingram and Avi Bajpai. A lot happened at the General Assembly this past week. Probably the biggest thing was really the House Oversight Committee and what's going on at the DMV. And there's a whole slew of things that happened in that committee, but the DMV really was the focus of the grilling. So Kyle, you were there. Bring us up to speed.
Yeah, so this past week, the Oversight Committee hauled in Wayne Goodman, who's the current commissioner of the DMV, to grill him about what they said is, they called the agency a failure. I mean, they said that it is a horrible customer service experience to go to the DMV here in North Carolina. They've been saying that for years, over with previous commissioners as well, that the wait times are crazy. There's no appointments. It's just an overall bad experience. But what made this hearing interesting was the day they brought him in was the day after Goodwin announced that he would be stepping down as commissioner. So he didn't fully resign from the role yet. He's going to stay with it until they find someone to replace him. But he came in on the heels of that news, and the chair of the committee, Brendan Jones, who's also the House Majority Leader, asked him, "Well, if you're going to step down, why don't you just leave right now? Because the agency's been a failure under your administration, under your leadership. So why not just leave?" And Goodwin said, "Well, I don't want to leave a vacancy at the top. You know, we've got projects ongoing right now under my leadership. And if I leave, that could slow them down." And Brendan Jones said, "If the DMV slowed down anymore, it would stop."
So some oversight grilling quips in there. So this was really an all-day thing. So it was also the transportation secretary, it was the revenue secretary, and it was the budget director. And then they had planned but didn't get to the controller and treasurer. The way this is looking is this is just the first of Representative Jones called it a series of meetings or hearings really, where they're going to bring in mostly Democratic Governor Josh Stein's people, the cabinet people, but also Council of State. And the first up, the Department of Revenue Secretary Wooten, it was a lot of just sort of information things where he just shared an overview. The premise is kind of DOGE-like, but maybe less slash burn, more looking at exactly where efficiencies are, what needs to happen. And the revenue secretary said the things he needs are technology upgrades so they can have better customer service. And most of the questions from the Democrats and Republicans on House Oversight were about, okay, well, how exactly do we do this? And what do you need? And how would this come to be? And really the only kind of grilling part was Representative Echeverria, who asked about DEI in the agency, because that is a separate bill and we're kind of crossover and topics here. So we can still include more oversight talk, but let's like DEI itself. I think, Avi, you were the first to look at the bill, and then Kyle, the Legislative Black Caucus held a press conference about it. So let's talk about what they said first. And you can read Kyle's story in the News and Observer.
Yeah, so before we even got to these oversight hearings, Brendan Jones, who I spoke about earlier, the House Majority Leader, has filed a bill to ban DEI in state agencies. And so this would be like any sort of programs that look at bringing in more minorities to the agencies, or, you know, having these sort of implicit bias trainings or things like that. This bill actually comes with criminal penalties for violating that. And it says that elected officials could be impeached for knowingly violating that. So that bill hasn't gotten a hearing yet, but it will be in committee this week. But Democrats have already come out in opposition to it. As you mentioned, the Legislative Black Caucus held a press conference last week saying that, you know, this bill does not make any sense. Senator Candy Smith said that this bill would make it legal to impeach her because she's Black. You had several speakers rebutting the idea that DEI somehow contradicts the notion of a meritocracy. They say that this isn't about giving unqualified people jobs. It's about making sure that we are looking at everybody who may be qualified to fill a position. So we'll see where that bill goes. As we all know, Republicans have lost their supermajority in the House by just one seat. So if in the event that this bill passes and is likely vetoed by Governor Stein, they would have to recruit a Democrat to vote with them to override it, or they would have to make use of some absence math to try and do it when someone doesn't show up.
But on that point, at that presser you were at, Kyle, I think Representative Garland Pierce was there, and he was pushing back against this bill pretty strongly too.
Yes.
So it could be a sign that Democrats are pretty united on this.
And I asked if the caucus had discussed this and if they would be united in opposing it. And they said that it hadn't come up in formal discussions with the caucus yet. But Garland Pierce himself, who has voted with Republicans before, said he did not see Democrats breaking on this issue. And he would be very surprised if a Democrat voted in favor of this.
And the timing really of this. So I had gotten to maybe the first half of the presser and then went upstairs for House Oversight, where in addition to like more of the customer service questions, which I think was probably the majority of what like you and I both like heard them going over, talking to these agency leaders about like, you know, where can you root out things, or are there problems or audits needed, except for Echevarria's DEI questions. Like that was, from what I saw, he was the only one mostly, I think, that brought that up. I don't know, it was the same for you when you were there for the afternoon? Yeah,
he brought it up with the DOT secretary, Joey Hopkins, and just asked him about, sort of grilling him about the DEI practices and saying, you know, are you using this to hire people who are unqualified, or how do you make the decision between, you know, two qualified people, one's a minority and one's not? Hopkins said he wasn't really super involved in making the department's DEI policy, but they just followed what the law was.
I think the debate we can probably expect is going to be like, what do you actually mean by this? Because diversity, equity, inclusion, you know, there's maybe a program with staffers, and that's different than, you know, what you do with your evaluations or recruiting or training, and what do they actually mean by this? And then what happened when the revenue secretary was Echevarria asking, you know, do you have DEI programs? And Wooten said no. And then he said, well, I see that you mention it in your strategic plan. And he's like, well, we didn't implement programs. And then when budget director Kristen Walker, again, these are part of Governor Stein's cabinet, when she was asked, she said, we're a welcoming place. And that both of them said a lot of what is on their websites is from OSHR, which is the Office of State Human Resources.
I think one interesting thing really quickly with these oversight hearings is Republicans are not at all shying away from aligning this with this DOGE efforts at the federal level. And there's been so much talk about how what Elon Musk and the team that he's leading, what they're doing at the federal level nationally, how that's playing out with public opinion. So it's just something that I think will be interesting to watch, how, you know, they've been really aggressive for the first month, little more than a month of the Trump administration at the federal level. I'm just curious to see how public perception of that is going to continue, and whether or not we're going to see, you know, what North Carolinians think of all this too.
I think a lot of people in the public don't like that, the sort of gleeful, like, you know, you've lost your job, and the not caring or not using any sort of precision. And some of the precision we might see, like with actual, like doing efficiency, would be what could come out of oversight. And those, you know, it's led by Republicans, has Democrats on it too. They ask questions about actual like efficiency. And State Auditor Dave Bullock, who we're almost need to take our break, but after we'll talk about the appropriations committees, and Auditor Bullock showed up to make his own pitch instead of, you know, sending staff or anybody else in general government appropriations. So we'll talk about that, as well as immigration and Attorney General Jeff Jackson, and our headliners after the break.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Get in the game with the college-branded Venmo debit card. Rep your team with every tap and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash, a new rewards program from Venmo. No monthly fee, no minimum balance, just school pride and spending power. Get in the game and sign up for the Venmo debit card at venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan here with Avi Bajpai and Kyle Ingram. Before the break, we talked about House Oversight, and part of oversight is things done by the state auditor. And as I had mentioned, State Auditor Dave Bullock came to his appropriations meetings. I'm the budget writer, so I'm most excited about this. All of the big joint approps started this past week, which was a lot of presentations, which could be boring to some people or exciting to some people because it actually, Kyle's yawning. Because it breaks down, Fiscal Research Division has these presentations of like how many people work there, where the money's coming from, how everything. Basically, it's telling all these lawmakers whose job it is going to be to allocate all our taxpayer money. Here's how it works and all these different agencies and programs. So anyway, their overview in Gen Gov of the state auditor, Auditor Bullock came and made his presentation, but also his pitch about he wants, I believe he said 65 more employees that he's going to, because of everything that he's doing on the auditing front, including, as we were talking about the DMV, he's already campaigned on this DMV audit. He said the first report of the DMV audit is going to be within, I guess, a little over a month or so. He's going to have an outside agency come in and audit the audit's office, but he wants these extra employees to handle this load of investigations and rapid response. When that's basically when the governor or a lawmaker says, hey, can you look into this? And the staffers are already looking into something else. So it's to make things move along. So that's one factor there. So there'll be more probes to come this week, next week, lots of weeks as we get through the budget process. So moving on to the Attorney General and immigration,
really the governor too.
And the governor and immigration and what Senate Leader Phil Berger is pushing. Avi, you've been covering all that. Yeah. Yeah.
So the Senate is really taking the initiative to, with this session, start off with these pretty major disputes with the new governor, the new attorney general, about their powers and their responsibilities, what the Senate, what Republican lawmakers think they should be focused on. There were two big bills that moved through committees this past week, and they're both going to be, as of now, they've passed the Rules Committee, so they're going to be on the floor, we expect, potentially Tuesday or Wednesday. So they'll be voted on pretty quickly. But one bill that is pretty sweeping immigration enforcement bill that Senator Berger is himself a primary sponsor on, which is quite notable.
Which means the Senate is going to pass it.
Yeah. That bill actually has the entire Senate Republican caucus signed on as sponsors. So, but that does a number of things. The biggest thing is that it looks at 4 state law enforcement agencies and requires them to enter cooperation agreements with ICE. So, of course, every people listening to the podcast will remember our coverage of House Bill 10 last year, which was about local law enforcement cooperation with sheriffs. But this is about state law enforcement agencies, DPS, DAC, Highway Patrol, SBI, and this program, the 287G program, which basically, if a law enforcement agency at the local or state level enters into an agreement with ICE, then basically it's empowering local law enforcement officers to kind of be deputized to carry out immigration enforcement like functions to assist the federal agents. So that's the big one on immigration. And then of course there's this fight between basically the legislature and the AG's office where Attorney General Jeff Jackson has signed on to a couple of lawsuits challenging policies from the Trump administration, some of President Trump's executive orders, and Republicans at the General Assembly don't think he should be doing that, and are moving this bill that specifically says that the AG cannot participate in any legal actions that seek to invalidate any presidential executive orders. So both of those bills are going to be on the floor this week.
And this would be the second time in recent memory that they've limited the AG's power, right?
Yeah, they already, with Senate Bill 382 last year, they already made a number of changes to the AG's powers. They specifically said that, in a similar vein, that the AG could not participate or take any legal action to invalidate state laws last year. Now they're expanding that to presidential executive orders. So there was a lot of debate in committee over, should the legislature be doing this? Would the legislature be doing this if the outcome of last year's election had been different, for example? I think it was Senator Mujtaba Mohammed who asked in committee, would this be happening, for example, if Vice President Kamala Harris had won the presidency and it was Congressman Dan Bishop as AG, not Jeff Jackson? And
Bishop just got a job in the Trump administration, right? Or it's in the process of...
OMB, yeah.
Yeah. One thing to note, too, is that this week the Council of State meets with Attorney General Jackson and Governor Stein and Auditor Bullock and everybody else. So we'll see what comes out of that. That is on Tuesday morning. All right, let's move on to our picks for Headliner of the Week. I'm going to suspend the rules and let myself have two headliners from things that happened. One is that you'd mentioned us talk about Kyle and I are both at the House Oversight. The reason I had to bail in the afternoon is because I had an appointment with my son to get his license at a DMV, and they did not honor the appointment because it was short-staffed and overcrowded, and really everybody. This is an issue that affects like every single person if you're a driver or know any drivers. My other one is a reference that State Budget Director Kristen Walker made. I've mentioned the podcast, probably not for a couple of years, that one of former Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld's really famous quotes was about known knowns and known unknowns. I had a talking Rumsfeld doll. The battery died. Anyway, Budget Director Walker was asked about all these cuts at the DOGE level. And does that, all these federal cuts, how is it going to impact the state? Does that mean people are going to be asking the state for more money? And she said, we don't really know yet, but right now we're dealing with the known knowns, which they already know at the budget office. And our former colleague at the NNO and current press corps colleague, Will Doran, who heard me talk about it often, turned around in the committee and looked at me and we laughed. So anyway, shout out to Budget Director Walker. I caught your reference, assuming that's what that was. All right. Kyle, yours is not about politics. Let's go to you next.
It so rarely is. But here's the politics spin I'll give it. By the time listeners listen to this podcast on Monday, the most important election of the last year will have happened, which is the Oscars. And I don't know who's the winner as we record this right now, but I'm hoping that by the time this is on your feeds, we'll have found out that Demi Moore won Best Actress for her role in The Substance, which was my favorite movie of the year. So I'll be watching that this weekend.
I'm looking forward to just seeing like the cool outfits and stuff, really. So
some of our press corps colleagues and I have we're going to print out ballots and write in what we think are going to be the winners ahead of time. And then as we watch it, track who had the best performance.
And then what's the prize? Just the satisfaction of winning.
Yeah.
All right, Avi, what is your headliner of the week?
I'm going to take us back to the legislative building, specifically the snack bar, and just say how much I appreciate the coffee at the snack bar this past week was a lifesaver, especially with these early morning committees. It does the job. That's what you want in coffee. So
it's only $1.
It's $1. It does the job. It wakes you up.
Cup.
It's the perfect way to start a long day at the building. So
Avi successfully lobbied me to try the snack bar coffee and like the little styrofoam cup. It did the job. The breakfast is actually really good. You mentioned Garland Pierce earlier. He was in there eating breakfast when we went in to get something.
With Representative Abe Jones. Too.
Right. Yeah. So I recommend the scrambled egg, bacon, and toast. And extra shout out to all the legislative snack bar staff.
Yes. Really, everything's good there. And it's all cheap.
Yep. There you go. All right, we are out of time for the News and Observer. I'm Dawn Vaughan with Avi Bajpai, Kyle Ingram, producer Laura Brache. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe and sign up for our weekly political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.